Welcome to another video, Purple Political Talk here. Today is Sunday, August 1st, 2021, and today we're going to be discussing the 2024 presidential elections and take a look at a scenario that I would think is a very interesting scenario based on where these two candidates are, in their political careers, their beliefs, and everything. And it would actually be interesting scenario to see how it plays out. This being the scenario between former President Donald Trump from the state of Florida and former Representative Tulsi Gabbard from the state of Hawaii. So this is going to be a very interesting matchup, but before we do begin, I want to remind you guys to like, to subscribe, and to turn on post notifications to be up to date with our latest content. And I also wanted to remind you guys that channel memberships are now open. If you want to help out the channel and support the channel and help us grow, you can become a channel member and get perks while at it. So that would be something that I would deeply appreciate if you can. So, also in that spirit, I do want to give a very big shout out to our Purple Political Talk channel members, Adam Hurst and David Maxwell. We really could not do this without you. So thank you so much for your support. So now that we've gotten all of this out of the way, let's get started with the predictions. So, I think that this actually would be an interesting matchup based on where these two people are in their parties. Again, I am not convinced that neither of these candidates actually, or maybe just Donald Trump. I don't think that it's going to be as easy for them to end up winning primaries because their positions have become either A for Trump, where you look at his positions, his beliefs, and just the way that he carries himself. They become a little bit of a taboo, and they become, unpopular with a lot of independent voters, which win you races. As for Gabbard, it mostly becomes to the fact that in her, party, she is considered the most, almost a part of the Republican wing, which is interesting because just a couple of years ago, she was, part of Bernie Sanders' campaign. She was so popular with a lot of progressives, but, she has had a big shift, in political views. And, Tulsi Gabbard is someone who really focuses on the, I don't care what my party thinks type of politics, where she does whatever she thinks is best for the country. And I think for a lot of people, in the suburbs, I think if you put her against someone like Donald Trump, it's going to be an easy choice for them. They're probably going to end up choosing Tulsi Gabbard because Tulsi Gabbard has that appeal. Another thing I do want to talk about is, Donald Trump has a lot of political baggage, and I think it's something that we cannot deny. It's something that is going to have a lasting effect in the future for Trump, whether he runs for anything, in the future. And, being at the top of the ticket and having as much political baggage as Trump has, you could argue that maybe it's all not true, it was fabricated or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that all of that is there. And I think one of the things we must remember is the facts do not care about your feelings. So, I'm sorry if that's not in your mind frame that, Donald Trump has a political baggage, but he does. So at a nationwide point of view and a nationwide perspective, you're going to have to take a look at a lot of different things, including that, and see which of the two candidates would do better in individual states. So now that we've gotten all of this out of the way, let's get started with the prediction in the toss-up states. Let's start off with the likely states for Tulsi Gabbard. So I do think that Tulsi Gabbard has some, likely states. I think she could do pretty well in New Mexico, places like Colorado, Virginia, likely margins exceed where, a lot of, other Democrats could be doing in this race. I do think that she has really good support in Virginia because of the Northern Virginia suburbs, and I think she wouldn't do horribly down in Virginia Beach. I think that one of the characteristics that might really make Tulsi Gabbard a successful candidate for the Democratic Party is her moderate conservatism, because she has some viewpoints which are liberal and some viewpoints which are conservative, which with a lot of suburban voters is something that really could sell in places like Virginia and these states. And not really that's going to have a big impact on the election, because truly we've known from a very long time that these states usually do end up going Democrat. However, what they do have an impact is on margins and how solidified, support for the Democratic Party could be in these states. So I think Virginia is one of those places. I think that Colorado and New Mexico are similar in that sense, and I think that Tulsi Gabbard could win here easily by 7% in each of these states. So I think at least these are, the more traditional Democratic states. Moving away from a little bit more traditional Democratic states, and I would say places like Minnesota could definitely go to Tulsi Gabbard by, I would say, 7%. Similar to what Joe Biden carried. I think that not only has it become more Democratic and more liberal, I think that another thing that's really going to help out Tulsi Gabbard in the sense is that she has the appeal with some moderate and conservative voters, while she has the big base of anti-Trump voters behind her. We must remember, in 2020, a lot of people voted for Joe Biden, not because they loved Joe Biden, not because they, revered him, but more because they disliked Trump so much. A vote against more than a vote for. So I think the same thing is going to happen with Tulsi Gabbard, where we've seen states like Minnesota, those margins start to solidify for someone like Tulsi Gabbard. So now let's move on to the likely states for Donald Trump. I do think that Iowa and Ohio are two states where he could actually do very well, continue to gain his support that he's had for a long, long time. I do think that in 2024, almost against any Democrat, with maybe a couple of exceptions, these are going to be likely Republican states. I would say against someone like Tulsi Gabbard, probably 6, 7, 8%. Maybe a little bit lower than it was in 2020. I think that overall, Tulsi Gabbard might have a little bit more of that appeal. So I do think that that's something that could actually help her out and, lower those margins, because Iowa and Ohio are two states that we've seen go further to the right than than in a long time. And I think it's something that's very interesting to see. And I think that someone like Tulsi Gabbard could actually make those states come closer. As far as another state goes, I would usually put Texas in the likelihood I'm in these predictions, but I'm not. Florida's another state I'm pretty, I guess split on, so I'm going to actually leave those in the lean margin. So I think this is where Donald Trump and Tulsi Gabbard stands. Donald Trump at 148 and Tulsi Gabbard at 221 as we move into the lean margins. So the lean margins are margins between 5 and 1.5%. So I think that these are, again, more closer states. And let's start talking about Tulsi Gabbard's lean margins. So I think that, Tulsi Gabbard could do very well in New Hampshire, places like that, where she has that college-educated voters under her wing. Although I could actually argue to put that in the likely column, and I think that would be more of an argument, right? I think she could win in places like Nevada by lean margins. I think that that's somewhere where she could actually do very well, actually. And I do think that she can gain enough support in the state of Nevada to continue to gain it. Joe Biden won it by barely in the lean margin. I think she can expand on that because of her different wide appeals that, a lot of voters might say, well, I don't want to vote for Donald Trump, but I don't want to vote for Joe Biden. In this case, I think Tulsi Gabbard could take a lot of that vote share from the Republicans, mostly like Mitt Romney style Republicans. A lot of the Republicans that, ended up endorsing Biden. And then you also have some more that, are going to end up voting for her. So I do think she could end up winning in Nevada, although that's where I think her, lean states end. As for Donald Trump, I do think he wins in Texas, and I think he wins in Florida by lean margins. So you might be asking, well, Florida, trending red. Yeah, Florida is trending red, but people don't realize kind of how slowly it's trending red. Because we have some bigger counties like, not Maricopa, this is not Arizona, but Hillsborough and Pinellas and Duval counties, which, they're voting more Democratic. And I do think that with someone like Tulsi Gabbard, those counties are going to end up voting for more. And in places like Broward County that, they tightened up a little bit in 2020, mostly a lot of white suburbs. I do think that those places are going to love Tulsi Gabbard. And even in Miami-Dade County, where we saw, the Democrats may lose a lot of ground, I think that Tulsi Gabbard, she's not going to gain not even half of it back, not even, I would say, 75% of it back, but she could probably gain back 2 or 3%. I think that she is someone who can really appeal to a lot of voters, and I think that in Florida, she could lower down those margins. I would say probably to what they were in 2020, maybe a little bit less. And in Texas, I do think that, it's a state that the Republicans are going to have a hold on for a while. I mean, a lot of people are, obsessing about Texas going blue in 2024, and it's not going to happen in my eyes. I could be wrong. If you're watching this in the future, I might look like an idiot, but that's besides the point. I do think against Tulsi Gabbard is probably going to be able to, go in the rural areas, gain a little bit more of that support, and then, of course, solidify that suburban vote. I do think that Tulsi Gabbard is the candidate for the Sun Belt. I think she's a very good candidate. I just do not think that Texas is right now the state where we're going to see the Democrats end up winning. So that covers our lean states except the 2 districts, which I do think Nebraska's second. I do think that Tulsi Gabbard would carry by lean margin. And then in Maine second, we would see, again, Donald Trump win by a lean margin. I think actually Tulsi Gabbard actually has a decent shot of winning that district. She's more conservative and stuff, so I do think that she could do a little bit better there. So now that we've covered all the lean states, let's move on to the toss-up states and the tilt states. So I'm going to just go from east to west like I usually, or from west to east like I usually do, and start discussing states. So starting with Arizona, I do think that Tulsi Gabbard narrowly wins there, probably by around 1 percentage point. I think she carries Maricopa County by a lot. Joe Biden, I would say she's a better candidate for Maricopa County than Joe Biden. And I think one of the things that really helps her out is that she has the anti-Trump vote, but she also has, moderate voters that, flip because they actually like her. So I do think Tulsi Gabbard is actually a really good candidate for Arizona. I think she could win in Maricopa and then probably make the margins in some of the rural areas come down a little bit. Moving on to the state of Wisconsin, I do think that this is one of the areas where Donald Trump actually might win. I think that this is just more industrial, more working class, more Trump economics type state. And I do think that, it's a state that heavily relies on manufacturing. So I do think that Donald Trump's probably going to end up winning here. It's going to be close. I would say maybe a little bit higher than 2016 margins. I would say probably around 0.8 to 0.8 to 1%. So that's what I think in the state of Wisconsin. Moving on down south to the state of Georgia. Very narrowly, I also think Tulsi Gabbard could actually win here. I think she solidifies that support amongst white suburbans in Atlanta, voters in Atlanta. And I think with the help of, a lot of those activists and, black leaders down in Georgia, like Stacey Abrams, she might be able to, carry the support for the, for the Democratic Party down in Georgia. And again, the anti-Trump vote, with her appeal to suburban voters, I think kind of makes a winning package for Tulsi Gabbard down in the state of Georgia. Moving on to the last three states, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina. In North Carolina, I would actually go as far as saying I think that she very narrowly defeats Donald Trump in North Carolina. This is looking like a weird map, but I do think that she just has that symbol appeal just a little bit better than Donald Trump. And I do think that with African-American turnout, with, growing suburbs, these different things that really do help out the Democrats, she is the type of candidate to win here. If you put somewhere like Joe Biden or a Kamala Harris, who's a little bit slightly more to the left than Tulsi Gabbard is, I think they lose the states, and that's because how narrow the state will be. However, I do think that in North Carolina, we can end up seeing Tulsi Gabbard end up winning the state, and I think this is a map that a lot of people don't expect when looking at this scenario, and I think that already gives Tulsi Gabbard the victory. In the last two states, I do think Tulsi Gabbard probably ends up winning in Michigan. I think, again, with the suburbs of Detroit, with accelerated margins, I think that the state has, grown very Democratic. So I think she's going to be able to hold on to that. But Donald Trump would make it insanely close. And I think Pennsylvania actually does end up going to Donald Trump. Working class support for Trump is going to be through the roof. And I think it really comes down to suburban votes are going to go mostly to Tulsi Gabbard, and then you're going to have working class voters, turn out for Trump in the big numbers. So I do think this is the final electoral map. Donald Trump at 248 to Tulsi Gabbard's 290. Tulsi Gabbard, I think, is a very interesting candidate, and if the Democrats are able to run her successfully, and if she's able to win the nomination, I think she has a very big chance of winning. And yeah, I think that the map really shows that. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a huge thumbs up, like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to be up to date with our latest content. Again, I want to thank all you guys for watching, and goodbye.